Hello and welcome. You are watching ET Now News First at 4. Those were the headlines. I am Krishna Kumar. It's D-Day for shareholders of TCS. TCS is holding the first of the 6 EGMs by Tata companies as Tata Sons seeks the ouster of Cyrus Mistry from their board of directors. After his unceremonious exit as the chairman of Tata Sons, Mistry was also removed as the chairman of the software giant and replaced by Ishaq Hussain. Let's then take it across to Vijay Ganeshan Iyer and Ashwin Mohan, who have been tracking this all-important EGM all day long. Ashwin, let's take it across to you first. Talk to us. Okay, let's take it across to Vijay first. Vijay, talk to us. You are right there where the EGM is taking place. What is the mood over there like on ground?
Clearly, Krishna, I have not witnessed any EGM of this proposition and this drama. Clearly, if you go by what started around 2 p.m., lot of shareholders lining up, and the big takeaway was clearly knowing how things have panned out. Big financial houses and brokerages have indeed sent their top analysts to attend this particular EGM, clearly giving an indication of how this boardroom battle has really rattled everyone. And we all know how Tata Group companies have taken the beating in the last 1.5 months after Cyrus Mistry was removed as Tata Group chairman. Having said that, clearly it was like an anti-climax of sort, with Cyrus Mistry not attending this EGM. Rather, he preferred to address the shareholders via a letter released around 2 p.m. just 1.5 hours before the EGM was going to start, and he clearly said that it's a given arithmetic conclusion that Tata Sons as a promoters hold close to 74%. They will succeed in removing me as a director, but my fight was not about me, but it was clearly about the corporate governance and how things should be practiced at the group level, at the same time at TCS. Also, he went on to make an emotional appeal saying every shareholder to ask their conscience before they casted their vote today. So clearly Cyrus Mistry knew this was a losing battle, particularly on TCS. He rather preferring not to come and making an emotional appeal to shareholders. By the clock 3:30, the EGM began under TCS interim chairman Mr. Ishaq Hussain, who although started the proceedings but preferred an independent director to take forward the whole of EGM proceedings, keeping in mind the best corporate governance practices. Having said that, this particular EGM, if I could say, was full of drama, emotion, so on and so forth. As we speak, shareholders are allowed to speak and put forth their views on the resolution. There are indications that perhaps it would be 8 p.m. before we could get the final conclusion or the outcome of this e-voting and the ballot cast that shareholders will be doing on the resolution of Tata Sons to remove Cyrus Mistry as a director. But clearly, let me tell, TCS perhaps has gone all out to ensure, even after having their numbers on their side, to ensure that TCS EGM goes as per their plans. I have never seen such a EGM at such large scale and such dramatics happening at this venue here in Mumbai.
Vijay Ganeshan Iyer there getting us the ground report from the first of 6 AGMs to follow at the Tata Group. Vijay, thank you so much for bringing us that update, and it's a big day, and we do have very special guests joining us to understand the day better and to put that all into perspective. We also have ET Now's very own Abhinaba Das joining me here in the studio, and first up we have Mr. Sriram Subramaniam from InGovern joining us right here in our Mumbai studios, and we also have Mr. Arun Sangwan joining us as well. Sriram, I'm going to take this across to you first. Big day first of the EGM marathon that's going to take place, and this particular case, it's an open and shut case for Tata Sons, isn't it?
Yes, today of course sets the tone for the rest of the EGMs. This is the first and the largest from a perspective of the wealth that investors have. There are 6 more EGMs to follow, of which the 5 EGM notices have already been come. The 6th one, which is Tata Global Beverages, of course the notice has not yet been issued, but definitely today's EGM sets the tone, because how investors vote will determine as to what is the defense that both Tata Sons as a shareholder as well as Mr. Cyrus Mistry as the interested party whose ouster is under consideration would determine. So today's voting, while the results are a foregone conclusion, will be very crucial. So we would be very closely watching how many institutional investors voted against this. There are 1,200 folios that are in the count, 17% foreign institutional investor holding, while LIC holds about 3%. So we need to see, as you rightly said, maybe LIC will abstain, but probably the FIIs would vote against, some FIIs would vote against, and that would be interesting because that sets a tone. And for the rest, where Tata Sons doesn't have such a huge shareholding, if you see Indian hotels, they have as promoters 38%, but as Tata Sons they have 28%. And today's buy of Tata Motors, where they bought almost 1.5%, indicates that they are willing to put more capital to ensure that their position is not as vulnerable as it is today. So they want to consolidate their position, they want to enhance. While the Tata Motors, we have to see whether the votes will be counted, because the cutoff date is December 15th for the forthcoming EGM of Tata Motors. So whether these will be credited to the demat account ahead of December 15th, which is day after tomorrow, needs to be seen. So these are the 2 points that I want to say. But definitely a crucial day for both camps. While the result is known, just like in any general election, it would be interesting to see where the votes swing, so to say.
Well, if I could come to you, Professor Arun Sangwan, I mean, today Cyrus Mistry has not attended the EGM. Do you think it weakens his case in some ways? Because at the end of the day, we all knew that TCS EGM would be a non-event of sorts, given the fact that Tata's own almost 73%. But just to make his case, wouldn't have been better had he been there at the EGM today?
For all practical purposes, I think the presence would have just been ceremonial, because what he had to say, I think, has been released in a number of letters which are available to the general public as well as institutional investors. So what he had to communicate has been communicated. The rest is ceremonial. From my perspective, what is more important to shareholders, big and small, institutional, including institutional investors, are two things. One is the performance of the group, and number two is a culture. What is the culture that would either support the performance or negatively impact the performance? The rest of the drama and stuff like that, I would suggest it's getting too much.
Well, Sandeep Parekh, if I could come to you, I mean, today's results are more or less a foregone conclusion, but does it set the tone, as Krishna was asking, for the coming EGMs which happen next week? Because it would be interesting to see how minority shareholders and, more importantly, institutional shareholders vote in this case.
Hey, thanks. So, I think TCS is a bit of an outlier in the mathematics game, with the 72 or 73% being controlled by Tata Sons and affiliates. So I think it's kind of obviously a foregone conclusion, is this pure mathematics. And I don't think it has much to do with Mistry's appeal really to minority shareholders, because even if 100% of the minority shareholders, which is highly unlikely to be present at voting, vote for him, he'll still lose. So I think it's of no consequence. Today's vote is definitely going to go against him. For the others, I think it's going to be a closer battle. He may lose all of them, for sure. But at the same time, I think there will be a fight at least in the other, because I think all of them are in the range of 30 to 35% shareholding of Tata Sons and affiliates. So my guess is it's going to be a lot more interesting for the other cases. Today was always kind of highly predictable, and therefore I don't think anybody was waiting with bated breath.
Sriram, if I could come to you, I mean, when it comes to the EGM today, Ratan Tata is there. He was not expected to be there at the EGM, and the fact that he makes his presence also gives out a very strong message to the shareholders, isn't it?
No, yes, I mean his presence definitely adds to the importance of the EGM itself, and definitely, but the representations to shareholders have already been made, especially to institutional investors. Both Tata Sons and Cyrus Mistry have gone and met institutional investors or have had telephonic calls with the FIIs if they are not present in Mumbai. So that leg of I think appealing to investors is done. It is more the physical presence today where Mr. Ratan Tata is present. Yes, it adds to the heft, it adds to the seriousness, but of course he is in what position or role he is coming in to attend the EGM is not clear, because if he is attending, he can only attend, he is not on the board of TCS, mind you, so he can only attend as a representative of the shareholder, which is Tata Sons. So it needs to be very clear as to he cannot just walk into the EGM. He has to have a proxy, he has to represent Tata Sons and then only come into the EGM. These are some technical matters, and mind you, just for these technical matters or the lack of protocol and holding these protocols, people have been or companies have, including some of these meetings, have had an issue.
All right, Mr. Subramanian, please hold on to your thoughts, because currently, right now, RBI's Deputy Governor is addressing the media. Let's cut across live.
Notes during this period. So this way, the entire system has been continuously gearing up for supporting the circulation of notes in the hands of the public. Daily, we are issuing more and more notes, getting it printed and issuing it, and this will be a continuous affair, and the public are requested to freely use the notes that they have in their hands rather than hoarding it. Thank you.
There had been a number of media reports about some of the transactions noticed in various bank branches, or some alleged involvement of bank staff at say various banks or various branches. I would like to mention that from the beginning of this process, banking industry has done good work. Bank employees have made lot of efforts, and majority of them have certainly won the appreciation. Having said that, in an operation of this size, there are always elements who would have behaved otherwise than what is expected of them, and we are keeping a constant vigil on the same. We have issued elaborate instruction to all the bank managements to do the central data checking, and whenever they find any inconsistency, it should be pursued further through their internal audit mechanism. RBI supervisors are also carrying out the similar exercise on the various data points of banks, and whenever any untoward kind of transactions or action is noticed, the due action would be pursued, due investigation would be done. There had been already cases where banks have taken action against the staff members. There has been a media report about one of the RBI staff at Bengaluru as well. Let me clarify that it was a junior functionary of Reserve Bank of India, and it was reported by the investigating agency that he was recorded to be present in a bank branch where this kind of transaction was happening. Having known about that, the concerned employee has been suspended. We have instituted investigation, and due action would be taken once the details are known. Reserve Bank of India and its team is also coordinating and collaborating with the various investigating agencies as they come back with the details of the action which are noticed by them. I think this is also known that all the banks as well as Reserve Bank of India is having an institution of whistleblower, and we always encourage that in a mission like this, even if they need any kind of this kind of information, when it is flagged to us through the whistleblower mechanism, there also the due process would be undertaken. So in all such cases, due action has been initiated, the investigations are being undertaken, and wherever needed, the proper action would be taken.
Thank you. Yeah, one more. Pardon?
There is no such thing at this point of time. As I mentioned, that wherever any such actions are reported, the inquiries are being made, but as of now, no show-cause notice has been issued as yet.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was RBI's Deputy Governors Mr. Mundra and Mr. Gandhi explained two things. One is that the system is geared up and fresh notes are being added to the system, and more importantly, the official from RBI who was taken to task by CBI in Bengaluru today, they clarified that he was not a senior official but a junior functionary, and that proper investigation has been instituted against him, and more importantly, he has indeed been suspended. So the RBI, they are coming out with clarifications on one, the official who was caught in Bengaluru by the CBI, and two, that lauding the banks on their work and the bank employees' work in terms of the demonetization drive, and asking people not to hoard cash, and that they are doing all that's possible to pump in as much fresh notes into the system as possible. And with that, let's get back to the topic of discussion that we are going through over here, and that is the all-important extraordinary general meeting of TCS. And we do have Mr. Sriram Subramaniam, Mr. Professor Arun Sangwan, and Mr. Sandeep Parekh, and ETR's very own Abhidaba Das as well joining us here in the studios. I'm just going to take this back to Mr. Professor Sangwan. Professor Sangwan, one is that the TCS EGM might be an open and shut case, and we've got 6 more put together. It will change from company to company. So if you are telling me that TCS EGM, even if it does set the tone, it might be different from case by case basis, and only when we're done with all these EGMs will we know how each one of them played out, or is there a pattern that we can read going forward?
I would again say, my role is different. I would simply not get into any arithmetics of the situation. It's more about, pardon my saying, but it's more like networking, influencing, stuff like that, both camps. That really doesn't interest me at all. Okay? My issues are different. One is performance of the company, of the group, and number 2 is what is the culture within the group. Those are my major concerns.
Sriram, if I could come to you, Tatas have made their intent very clear yesterday when they look to raise stake in Tata Motors. We know that TCS is more of an exception here. Most of the Tata companies, the promoter stake is just around 30%. So is this something that Tatas would adopt for other group companies as well ahead of the EGMs?
Yes, it is tough to say whether they will deploy more capital or whether they need to, they will enhance their shareholding in each of the companies. I don't think that's a worthwhile strategy because it involves a lot of capital. Even to buy this 1.5% shareholding in Tata Motors, they have deployed 2,500 crores. That is money which they may not readily have. 2 is it should be understood that institutional investors obviously have already sort of directly or indirectly would have conveyed some messages to Tata Sons and Cyrus Mistry already. So whether that messages have gone and how is Tata Sons receiving those messages, that is crucial. So I would think yes, at one end shoring up their shareholding is one strategy, but that is not all. So that's where you will see this representation being made to shareholders. I would think even ahead of each of the EGMs, maybe they will send out more letters, and it is not at all that the communication will stop. till the last EGMs are over. So I would think that we can expect more letters to shareholders, more reach out to investors, and more media coverage of these till the end of this month, I would think.
But Professor Sangwan, I mean, don't you see merit in the Tata's argument that hostility between the Tatas and the chairman will lead to disruption for any Tata company, and that's something that why the Tatas are appealing to the shareholders to vote out Mistry, because Cyrus Mistry and Tata Sons are obviously not the best partners to work together.
See here, the Tata trusts are public charitable trusts which exist solely for the reason of doing good to the Indian public. Okay, in their role, they really should not be interfering with the operations of the group except safeguard the interest of their beneficiaries. Separating that, and this separation has, by the way, happened for the very first time, right? Earlier the chairman was actually the same for both the things. I would say differences in opinion is very crucial here. You do not necessarily need to agree, and that is something which is, you know, I wish there was a difference of opinion earlier on between 2004 to 2010. I wish there was.
But Sandeep, if I could take the same question to you, is it healthy to have a situation wherein the chairman and the promoter don't see eye to eye? Can it ever have a situation where the company carries on without any hindrance?
Well, I think it's good to have different interests at play here. So I think in a way, you know, a lot of masks have fallen. So I mean, I think India's going through a certain moment right now in terms of looking at the roles of each of the individual parties, you know, whether it's Cyrus Mistry, Ratan Tata, independent directors. All the roles are becoming clear, particularly independent directors, you know, whether they're independent, I mean, who do they owe their allegiance to, etc. So I think lots of big picture questions are going to be looked at again in the next 6 months to a year. So I think it's a very interesting time from that perspective.
All right, Mr. Sandeep Parekh, Mr. Sriram Subramaniam and Professor Arun Sangwan, thank you so much to all three of you gentlemen for taking time out to be with us here on this big day in what's probably one of India's biggest corporate boardroom battles. And thank you Abhinava Das as well for joining us here on the show and putting it into perspective. And with that, we need to wrap things up here, but we here at ET Now will get you all the latest on the TCS EGM and especially the outcome of that in about a couple of hours from now. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Keep it with ET Now. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.